welcome back. Once again, adventurers, to Let's Play ChäoS Child. In the last episode, Takuru decided to return to Aoba Dorm to look for Nono Kurisu, or rather Senri Minamisawa, after being pestered by both Yuto and Uki. And when he was there, he remembered all of the times that Senri, living as Kurisu, tried to help him recover after his coma in the wake of the Shibuya Earthquake. Not discovering Senri, however, Takuru was about to leave before Kawahara showed up and essentially beat the living shit out of him, being motivated by his own selfish, twisted desires for the now deceased Nono Kurisu. But when Takuru tried to push Kawahara over the edge, he instead relented and ran away like a complete coward. Of course, as I expected, with Takuru's suicidal nihilistic thoughts, it was only a matter of time before Serika would appear from the wings to grant him his so-called wish. But before she could deal the killing blow, Takuru was saved by none other than Senri herself, who has finally decided to drop the facade of Nono Kurisu and live as Senri.
あなたなら聞かなくても分かってるんでしょ。あなたの手からタクルを守りによ。
In other words, Senri is hoping to repay the debt that Takuru could not. After all, there was no way that young Takuru could have saved her from those insidious experiments in the hospital. But perhaps Senri might be able to save Takuru from this entire ordeal. Perhaps.
その醜く無様な姿で。そうよ。これが偽らざる私の姿だから。そうか。面白い。でも。
Unfortunately, it's the same as it was on the rooftop of Heikyo Academy. And there it is. I think you let slip your true intentions there, Serika Noe. Yeah. This was never Takuru Miyashiro's game. The return of the new generation madness and everything that followed afterwards. This was a game that was set up by none other than Serika Noe herself, and no one else. Senri flinched back in fear as the blade sliced through the raindrops. Her expression twisted in pain. It was only then that I saw the blood and cut on her shoulder. Senri might have spirit, but that's not enough against Serika.
まだその名前で で呼んでくれるんだ。
As the old saying goes, old habits die hard.
そんなことより、肩。
さっきちょっとかすっちゃったみたい。でもこのくらい。何が
Serika is clearly annoyed. Unfortunately, with her telepathy, she does have the advantage.
邪魔をするなと言っているこの偽物が。私はもうクルス殿の偽物なんかじゃない。私は南沢千里、本物の南沢千里よ。
It was a type of resolve. You could call it determination. A determination to abandon the life she'd lived for years and be reborn anew.
そんなことどっちだっていい。私は宮代拓の望みを叶えてあげるだけ。だからお前は邪魔なんだよ。
Takuru Miyashiro never wished to die. You were manipulating him towards that end, Serika.
タクルの望み。
そうだ、宮代拓は自分なんていなければいいと思った。消してくれと思った。だから私がその望みを叶えてやる。
Now that I think about it, was that actually his wish from 6 years ago?
なぜならそれが私、尾上セリカの存在する理由だから。だからそこをどけ。
そんなのダメよ。私が許さない。
Still, Senri believes in Takuru. Serika's sword was designed to attack, but Senri's sword was heavy, and hurt as she was, it seemed hard for her to use. She wasn't Nono anymore anyway, she was Senri Minamisawa. She was feeling the pain from all the terrible experiments she'd suffered over the years. Serika's attack slowly started pushing her back.
邪魔をするな。
タクルは私の弟よ。あなたに殺させなんかしない。
そんなの。
She's losing ground.
お前こそ家族を壊した元凶だろうが。
それでも私は。
Serika's trying to burn through Senri's resolve. And still the battle rages on. The blade shook like thunder. A swirl of wind appeared around Serika's feet.
どけって言ってるんだよ。
The fierce blow knocked her to her knees. Her tiny thin neck was defenseless and exposed.
死ねよお前。
A cold voice and a white flash. But still Senri refuses to surrender.
おのえ。
Or rather not. It was Takuru who blocked Serika's next blow. I pointed the weapon I pulled from the Sea of Chaos, feeling its heft in my hand.
タク、どうして？
Part of me still thinks that you've been lying to Takuru as well as to yourself. Because I think that despite what you said to Wakui about you serving no purpose once Takuru Miyashiro is dead, I don't believe you. Once Takuru Miyashiro is gone, you are literally free to do anything as you please.
死にたいって言ったのはタクだよ。
ああ。言った。
じゃあどうしてその女をかばうの？そいつはタクを騙してたんだよ。
And she's not the only one.
ああ。そうだな。
だったら。
でも。
Maybe it wouldn't be that easy to forgive her for lying to me. But everything she'd done for us, she'd done as a part of our family. Not as Nono Kurisu or Senri Minamisawa. She'd given us her love. And it was real love. It probably didn't matter what her name was or where she was born or what she looked like. What I really wanted, it was to once more.
そうか。
それが宮代拓の望み。だったら。
Serika looked up and smiled, then readied her weapon.
その望みごと葬ってやる!
Yeah. That whole nonsense about you existing only for Takuru Miyashiro's sake. You've just contradicted that sentiment. I don't know why, but you've been wanting Takuru Miyashiro to die. You've been wanting to kill him with your own two hands for so long. So why the justification? Simply because it makes it more fun or interesting? I'm not buying it. The D-sword became a hurricane of light as she attacked me.
Takuru!
大丈夫。
It was one thing to say it, but I was still feeling the pain from where Kawahara had hit me, and just knocking back Serika's attacks was enough to make my body scream.
どうした? 偉そうなこと言ってその程度か!
Shining beams collided, scattering rainbows everywhere. Sword and sword collided like two magnets drawn to each other. My lungs hurt like they were on fire. Serika found a hole in my defenses and attacked. Her D-sword knocked mine upward and threw me off balance. The glowing weapon went straight for my exposed neck. I put my hand up to protect my throat. Unfortunately, yeah.
Takuru!
The inside of my left wrist was torn open. I felt the heat before I felt the pain. The warm rain fell down and spread the blood into a puddle at my feet. I bit down on my teeth hard to keep from passing out, then tried to judge the distance between us again.
どうした？やられる一方だぞ。そんなことで。
The fierce blade struck again. I just barely managed to move out the way in time. At this rate she would kill me. Like Serika said, if I didn't attack her, this was only going to end one way. But the pain, exhaustion, rain and sweat were already blurring my vision. My strength was at its limits. If I could just land one hit. It's a very tall order. One hit.
楽しいよね。私はすっごく楽しい。
Yeah, and once again, Serika Noe revealing her true intentions and her taunting us. Yeah, your existence had nothing to do with... Yeah, had absolutely nothing to do with fulfilling Takuru Miyashiro's wishes, desires, or intentions. This was all for your sake. Because you are a real booted delusionary existence. Why wouldn't you have fun at the unreal suddenly being made real? I blocked her attack with the blade of my sword and threw her off balance just a little. That might be the opening we need. The air of self-satisfaction vanished from her face and was replaced by fear. I didn't miss my chance. What I wanted was... It wasn't destruction. It was a future with Minamizawa. That's right. That was my choice. Which can only mean one thing. I put all my strength and all my wishes into a single swing of the blade. Serika raised her weapon right in front of me. A bluff. Was it a trap? No. If she countered now, there was no way I could. Yeah, she saw right through us. I saw her smile. And then... She fell to the ground. I could still feel the sensation in my hands.
セリカ
I think she's toying with us. Red blood spread silently on the asphalt.
おのえ、どうして。
Serika knew exactly what I was going to do. If she wanted to kill me, she could have. So why?
たく楽しかった。
おのえ、
よね。私はタクが望む世界を見せてあげたい。それだけ。
Is that really the truth?
おのえ、
私はタクが望んで生まれた存在。でも今タクがそばにいてほしいのは私じゃない。
Serika smiled at her faintly.
タクのことよろしくね。セリカ。
ごめん、おのえ。僕のせいでこんな。
ねえ、タク。一つだけお願い。
僕にできることなら。
私を終わらせて。それができるのはタクだけだから。タクル。
Just like she asked, I took the D-sword and pointed her at her body. But
どうしたの？
ダメだ。できない。僕にはそんなこと。
しょうがないな、タクは。
she smiled happily and grabbed the blade with a shaking hand. And then
バイバイ、タク。
the D-sword went through her body without a sound.
おのえ。
The girl I'd created, the girl who was always there for me, was surrounded by a cocoon of light, which vanished into thin air. That was beyond anticlimactic, if I'm being brutally honest. The veil of rain that had covered the sky had vanished, leaving behind a stench on the asphalt. I looked up at the sky and saw a rainbow in the heavens. I could hear the crunching sound of footsteps on the gravel, going further into the distance.
ノノ。
Still calling Senri by Kurisu's name.
見ないで。
I was about to turn back but stopped when I heard the rejection in her voice.
ごめんね、タクル。もう二度とあなたの前に姿を現したりしないから。
what about Uki and Yuto? What about them?
でもね、これだけは信じてほしいの。確かに私は嘘をついていたけれど、あなたたちのことを大切な家族だって思ってた。お願いよ、信じてくれる？
That is the one truth that she has clung to all this time.
私はもうクルスノノじゃない。
The footsteps started again. Senri was leaving. We would never see her again.
今までありがとう。さようなら。
Like a ghost in the wind, she is gone. I turned around and saw a small girl. She was facing away from me. It was the first time I'd seen her, but I'd seen her 1,000 times before.
No.
I ran after her and grabbed her hand and forced her to look at me.
いや、やめて！
どうして？だ
って私はののちゃんじゃない。こんな醜い顔、タクルには見せたくない。
I held her close as she squirmed and tried to look away.
ごめん。僕。
タクル。
僕は間違ってた。お前がクルスノノか南沢千里かなんて関係なかった。どうだってよかったんだ。
Senri looked up at me in surprise, and for the first time I could see her face. It was different than Nono's. It didn't have her bright charm or her bold features. But
だってお前が僕の家族で僕にとって大事な人だってことには何も変わりはないんだから。
タクル。
tears fell from Senri's eyes. Memories came flooding back to me.
そうだよ。いつも僕を見てくれていたのはこの瞳だったんだ。動けない僕を献身的に看病してくれたのも、辛く苦しいリハビリに時には励まし、時には叱咤してくれたのも、僕のしでかすバカなことに本気で怒って本気で笑って、そして本気で泣いてくれたのも、いつだってそばで見守ってくれていたのはこの瞳だ。いつだって差し伸べてくれたのはこの小さな手だった。全部お前だった。 確かにお前は嘘をついてた。クルス・ノノじゃなかったかもしれない。けど僕を絶望の闇から救ってくれたのは本物のクルス・ノノじゃない。南沢千里、お前だった。
That was the truth. So,
私を許してくれるの？
it was Senri who had taken care of Yuto and Yui and Uki. I nodded silently.
クルス・ノノじゃなくても？
言っただろ。お前が僕の恩人で家族だってことは変わらない。
I held her tight, so that she would never go anywhere again. And
Senri.
I said her name. Her real name.
何？
おかえり。
ただいま。
Humans are temporal beings, as Martin Heidegger once said. And speaking of which, I think it was a philosopher named Heidegger who said that. Of course, as we all know, it was Kurusu Makase who pointed that out to Rintaro Okabe. Martin Heidegger, a German philosopher born in 1889 and died in 1976, a critic of metaphysics who used phenomenology to support his theory of ontology. He defined time as past, present, and future, which are three equal, continuous, and infinite things. His theory says that the present is the principal axis upon which the past and future are decided and time is created. Not to be confused with a certain large-bearded, green-shirted individual from the Final Fantasy series with a very obnoxious horse laugh. Time moves from the past to the future, and time is what rules over human lives. In that process, the past is lost and new things are born. The return of the new generation madness gradually began to fade from people's memories. The girl named Serika Noe, who was a person of interest in the case, vanished, and without any firm evidence, it was impossible to know if she ever existed at all. The case came to an end without a satisfactory answer. And then, what awaits in the aftermath? The four of us still lived in that cheap apartment.
ほら、ユウト、早く準備しないと遅れるわよ。ちょっと待ってよ。この番組終わったらやるから。
Well, I'm sure we're gonna find out soon, but I still have to ask the question. Did Senri tell Yuto and Uki the truth about who she really is?
そうやってテレビばっかり見て、ウキちゃんはもう準備できてるって。行ってきます。え、
Yeah, it's important not to be late.
いってらっしゃい。
So there's the answer to my question. Must have been quite a shock to Yuto and Uki regarding Senri's true identity. However, it cannot be denied that the bond between them was the same, whether she was Senri or Kurisu.
行ってきまーす。
Mornings were always busy like this.
たく、あんまりうるさくしてると。
The pounding on the wall was another thing we'd gotten used to.
また後でうるさく言われるな。
しょうがないわね。また夜にクッキーでも焼いてお裾分けしとくわ。
I'm not sure that Miyoko Sato will be so easily tempted with bribes, Senri.
頼むよ。どうした？
まさかこんな日が来るとは思ってなかったな。
And yet here it is. Nano Kurisu becoming Senri Minamisawa had created no end of problems. Of course, Yuto and Yamazoe weren't sure how to handle it all. Her name and appearance were totally different. I knew it would be impossible for them to think of her as the same person. But inside she was the same. She'd gone back to looking like Senri Minamisawa, sure. But she was still Nano Kurisu, the cheerful, helpful girl who'd kept the household running. After a few days of living with her, both of them got used to the idea that Senri Minamisawa was their sister. Of course, they were family. We couldn't exactly tell everyone else that Nano Kurisu was actually another girl all along. Yeah. So it ended up that Kurisu went to live with some very distant relatives, just as a new transfer student named Senri Minamisawa came to the school. Kawahara is going to be pissed. But you know what? I'm okay with that. I really am. It was hard for her to rebuild her relationships with her old pals from the ground up, but she pulled it off. Of course, a few of them.
お、チャオス、宮代先輩、クルス。
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be hard for Hanai to get used to this, but just reminding you of the fact that Senri is not Riko Haida, and Riko Haida was not Senri.
有村さん。あー、じゃなかった。南沢先輩。
お前な、いい加減慣れてくれよ。
んなこと言ったってそう簡単に行くもんじゃないですよ。ねえ、花。うん。
We told the people who knew about the case the real story.
つうかさ、 3年なんだし、今さら無理して学校来なくてもよかったんじゃねえの？
僕もそう言ったんだけどな。
And Ito is recovered. All's well that ends well, I guess.
あのままみんなと別れてしまうのは寂しいじゃない？
そんなもんかね。
I never would have taken a risk like that just to see the people in my class. But maybe that was just a sign of how she'd changed.
で、今日の部活は？
悪い。今日はちょっと行くところがあって。
行くところ？
ええ。なに先輩方2人で？もしかして無夫婦な感じ？違うわよ、そういうんじゃなくて。わかってますよ。まあたとえそうだとしても一つ屋根の下に暮らしてるんだから今さらって感じだし。
God damn it, Hanai.
たく。
それよりタクル、そろそろ。
ああ、そうだな。
We said goodbye to everyone and left. I think I know where we need to be. The sky was the same color it had been after the rain had stopped on that day. We headed for...
ののちゃん。
It was a grave, far away from Shibuya in the suburbs. The body that had been originally buried as Senri Minamisawa had now been quietly interned in the Kurusu family grave as Nono Kurusu. Nono Kurusu. She was a girl I knew well, and yet not. One I'd never actually met. Senri put her hands together in silent prayer as she faced the cold grave. There was so much she hadn't been able to say, so much that she wanted to say. Nano Kurisu and Senri Minamisawa were finally talking to each other as different people now. The sin of using her. The sin of burying her. The sin of lying. The guilt from those sins would never go away. But yet, some sort of reconciliation can finally be made now. But still.
ごめんね、ののちゃん。これからたくさん辛いこと、悲しいこともあるかもしれないけど、それでも私はもう逃げたりなんてせず、立ち向かっていこうと思う。南沢千里として。それが私にできるあなたへの手向けだと思うから。
The smoke from the incense rose toward the sky, blown about by the wind. And in the wind...
頑張って、千里ちゃん。
I thought I heard a voice. Everything that had happened so far was a mix of plots, misunderstandings, miscommunications, and successful efforts. So whenever I wanted to cry at what I'd become...
タクル。
ん？
これからも私のこと見守ってくれる？
I take the hand of the girl next to me, feel her warmth, and walk with her together, just like she'd done for me, for the sake of tomorrow, and for the future. That is still unknown. And so it ends.
ねえタク、楽しかった？
I think we're hearing ghosts now, ladies and gentlemen. Real Sky End. Achievement unlocked, heads or tails, and a second achievement. Okay. A hidden story has been unlocked. That is very important. Very, very important indeed. Real Sky End. Well, we've obtained Hanai's ending, Kazuki's ending, Uki's endings, and the endings of both Nano Kurisu and Senri Minamisawa. But there is one more ending, one more tale that is yet to be unfolded. Because we have achieved the other endings, we can now see this. A D-sword. But that will wait until the next episode. So when we return, adventurers, we shall finally get to the real heart of this matter, once and for all, and put a close on this entire story at long last. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.